what are some challenges you see culturally with U.S. sponsors with, doing transactions in Brazil or and vice versa that you?
I think a lot of challenges. I always joke, but it's a little bit true that there are only two things in life that matter. One is math, and the other is psychology. So if you try to learn both, I think it can take you a long way. I think the challenges between, let's say, U.S. sponsors and Latin American companies is great because some of the financial sponsors, they're very direct. They know what they want. They know what they're looking for. They want to get a deal done quickly. They have everything figured out. And when they approach Latin American companies, most of them are still family owned. So a lot of people are very attached to the company. It takes a long time for them to understand the dynamics of deal making, what that can lead to. So I would say, this is probably one of the few challenges that I faced.
Hello there, M&A Advisor community. This is Roger Aguinaldo, and welcome back to the M&A Advisor podcast. Since 1998, the M&A Advisor's mission is to recognize achievements, provide thought leadership, and connect professionals in mergers and acquisitions for the purpose of improving your deal-making craft and accelerating your deal flow. We are so glad you're joining us for this insightful and inspiring podcast conversation curated for mergers and acquisitions professionals. Whether you're an aspiring deal maker, a seasoned professional, or just curious about the world of mergers and acquisitions, you'll find something valuable and relevant in our podcast. Our goal is to bring you the best insights, stories, and tips from the experts who've been there and done that, so you can learn from their successes and mistakes and take your deal-making skills to the next level. But before we dive in today's episode, we have a small favor to ask you. If you enjoy listening to our podcast and find it useful, please consider following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and subscribing to our M&A Alerts newsletter. You can find the links in the description below. This will help us reach more people like you and grow our community of M&A professionals. It will also let us know that you appreciate our work and want us to keep producing more quality content for you. Plus, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll always be in the loop with the latest trends in the M&A world to improve and accelerate your deal making. So please follow us. You are the reason we do what we do, and we couldn't do it without you. And now for today's podcast.
All right, we'll have Ricardo and Ammar come up to the stage. Our second to last session of the day is the cultural power of a cross-border transaction experience, a very international conversation. This is going to be with Ricardo Lacerda. He is the founder and CEO of BR Partners, formerly head of LATAM for Citi and CEO Brazil of Goldman Sachs. Welcome, Ricardo. And he is going to be joined on stage by Ammar Misto. Ammar is the Senior Vice President and Head of Business Development at Atar Capital. Please welcome them. Welcome them. Just wait until you see me tonight. I'm really going to be controlling the crowd then. Thanks, guys.
Can you hear me? There we go. Thank you all. Yeah, my name's Ammar. I'm a Senior Vice President of a lower middle market focused private equity fund in Los Angeles, actually. We always we make the joke of you meet one LA-based private equity fund, you met them all. All kind of carve-out focus, underperforming, kind of turnaround focused businesses. I've been there for about 5 years now, and so yeah, that's a little bit about me, Ricardo.
Okay, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ricardo Lacerda, founding partner and CEO of BR Partners. We are a local Brazilian investment bank focused in merger and acquisitions, capital markets, debt restructuring, and wealth management.
Perfect. Well, our topic's about the cultural power of cross-border transactions. Ricardo, maybe if I had a couple more gray hairs, I could talk a little bit more in depth about this, but would love to hear about your experiences and and what you've seen in the space with dealing with, U.S. buyers, European buyers in this space.
Yeah, I spent basically my entire career in investment banking. I started with Chase Manhattan in Brazil as a credit analyst, and then I moved into corporate banking at the time, and then I moved to New York to get my MBA at Columbia Business School, and after that I joined Goldman Sachs, initially in New York for about 6-7 years, and then in Brazil I was head of Goldman in Brazil, and then moved to Citigroup where I covered all the countries in Latin America. So have a lot of experience in terms of cross-border deals, primarily between U.S. and European companies, also a little bit of Asian companies investing into Latin America and Brazil specifically.
Would you say throughout your experience, you're seeing a lot more U.S.-based sponsors looking at more cross-border transactions, and how have they been kind of navigating through that?
Yeah, I think initially in my career, I think that there was a big flow of U.S. companies, basically large companies in their respective sectors investing in Latin America. And then we saw a wave of financial sponsors also doing a lot of investments. More recently, I think that flow changed a little bit more into European companies and also Asian companies and sovereign wealth funds that are coming to Latin America. So it's been pretty diverse, and also depending a lot on the timing. Obviously, more recently the U.S. Has grown very much and has given a lot of opportunities for investors. So a lot of people are more focused in the U.S. markets as opposed to moving into other markets. But I think the flow throughout my career has been pretty balanced in terms of U.S., Europe, and Asia.
What are some challenges you see culturally with U.S. sponsors with, doing transactions in Brazil or and vice versa that you?
I think a lot of challenges. I always joke, but it's a little bit true that there are only two things in life that matter. One is math and the other is psychology. So if you try to learn both, I think it can take you a long way. I think the challenges between, let's say, U.S. sponsors in Latin American companies is great because some of the financial sponsors, they're very direct. They know what they want. They know what they're looking for. They want to get a deal done quickly. They have everything figured out. And when they approach Latin American companies, most of them are still family owned. So a lot of people are very attached to the company. It takes a long time for them to understand the dynamics of deal making, what that can lead to. So I would say, this is probably one of the few challenges that I faced.
That's super interesting because we, on the buy side, as you know, we recently did a carve-out transaction in Europe, and being a U.S. buyer for a European business, you can't kind of have your entrepreneurial, agile ways of going through a process. You got to be more structured. Deals take a little bit longer. We saw the teaser back in last May, and we closed the deal on the 31st at the end of last year. So things get kind of dragged out. They move in their own pace in the way. And something else that we kind of forgot about and we didn't know and we learned is the Europeans take a long holiday. So for 3 months from our management presentation to LOI, the deal kind of turned off because everyone was kind of on holiday. And so some nuances that we've learned throughout the process that we didn't know about before that we will carry with us moving forward in other processes.
Exactly. And I think it gets even more complicated because we talk a lot about Europe and we talk a lot about Latin America, for example. But in fact, when it comes to deal making and culture experiences, there's no such thing as Europe or Latin America. Europe, you have many countries, many different languages, many different cultures and approach to business, and the same in Latin America. So doing a deal in Brazil will be completely different from doing a deal in Mexico or Colombia or Peru or Argentina. Chile. So it's something that you need to understand the nuances of each of those markets in order to play it.
Something very specific that just came to mind actually was the fluctuations in currency. So we struck a deal at a certain price, but then 3 months later the euro got a little bit stronger. So that required a little bit of a sizable equity check. And then 2 weeks later the euro kind of collapsed. So that kind of hurt us a little bit, but that's another nuance that we forget about when kind of doing
That's definitely like a major issue when you look at investments in Latin America, for example. A lot of the US and global financial sponsors, they had cycles in which they heavily invested in those markets. But when you look at the performance of their investment, it depends a lot on the timing that they came in and out, given very high currency volatility. So that's definitely something that impacts, deal making, but also returns over time.
Right. And then throughout a process before acquisition, how important is it for more Latin American companies or European companies to see kind of the larger showing of a team throughout a management presentation, or trying to execute a deal rather than just sending your portfolio company, for example?
Yeah, no, I think that engagement is something that plays a very important role. I think that in a lot of those markets, you will be negotiating with people that are founders and main shareholders of the company. So I think showing up with the senior team and being very engaged is something that matters a lot, in my opinion.
Do you have any good examples that you could share of any transactions?
I think, I have a lot of examples in terms of showing the different nuances and the different cultures. I think there's one that I like, which is somewhat funny, that I was representing one of the largest retailers in Brazil in a sale to a very large US financial sponsor. And we were negotiating, and they did some due diligence, and actually they started looking at a due diligence of each of the main stores. There were like hundreds of stores. And then they saw that some of the stores didn't have all the permits that they needed, because it's virtually impossible to have all the permits in Brazil. It's so bureaucratic, and you need like a state permit, and a federal permit, a municipal permit, fire department permits. So it's like hundreds of permits that you need to have in place to be completely compliant with everything. But virtually nobody is 100% compliant with everything. So they got stuck in that point, and they wouldn't move with the deal. So I finally asked a lawyer to take a look at their own office, the office of the fund that they had in Brazil. And we found out that they were not compliant with basically any of the permits. So I brought to the meeting, I said, we shouldn't be negotiating here in your office because you're not compliant either. So they were very surprised. No, that's not possible. I said, no, it is possible. I have been trying to obtain this for like several years, and sometimes it's something that can be very complicated. So I think, understanding the dynamics and the relative importance of each of those things can sometimes be very challenging.
For us on the buy side, as kind of going backwards to that carve-out that we just did a couple of months ago, the carve-out was based in Czech Republic, Germany, and the US. And so there were leaders that we heavily relied on in the integration side that the previous ownership group did not rely on. So we elevated each kind of general manager per facility in Czech Republic, Romania, and Germany in order to focus on kind of a seamless integration with our current portfolio company. And that's something that we found is really important, is fostering leadership. It's not kind of a hierarchical approach. It's more of a flat approach with European focused companies.
We have a similar experience of a spin-off that we did of a Brazilian Colombian company. They were both listed. The original company was listed at the New York Stock Exchange in Brazil and Colombia. So it took us quite a while, and there were things that were like circular references that you had to do first in the US, but then you also needed the approval in Colombia. So that's something that could be very challenging at times.
And working around a clock, different the time change really makes a difference, right? And having different work streams around different countries and et cetera. So yeah, that's really important.
Exactly. I think that that's particularly challenging when you have deals, between Latin America and Asia. I think with the US, it's mostly, let's say, the same time zone or with a very small difference. I think with Europe, it starts getting a little bit more complicated. And with Asia, you really need to pick the time, either very early in the morning or late at evening to make the call. So, but I think the good experience that I have being based in Brazil is that it's a pretty regular flow throughout the years between US, Europe, and Asia for us.
Being on the sell side, what are some sort of key parameters you guys are selecting from when picking a buyer on a cross-border transaction? Like what sticks out for you guys when selecting a buyer?
I think given the challenges that Brazil and other Latin American countries have gone through in the past decades, with a lot of volatility, when you do a sell-side process, you normally have pretty well mapped who are the buyers that are interested in those markets, because normally you have a lot of global companies that are big in Latin America that have been there for many years and are very successful and have achieved very large scale. But normally in a sell-side process, usually you would not have buyers showing up that are not focused in the market or associated with that. But I think, one of the things that we look at is engagement, who is really serious and who's going to get to the finishing line, assuming that you have to do all the due diligence, negotiations, contract drafting, and, with a lot of legal uncertainty sometimes in those cases. So I think picking buyers that are really committed to the market and to the opportunity is something that matters a lot.
We're starting to see a lot, especially in the LA-focused private equity funds, they're opening up a lot of offices globally in order to tackle kind of these, I wouldn't say lower demand markets, but just demand markets where you're not seeing an activity like you're seeing in the U.S. Is that something that you've been seeing as well?
Yes, it's something that we see from time to time. I think that some waves, of financial sponsors coming into Latin America. Unfortunately, it's not something that we see with the regular flow. I think it depends a lot in terms of the timing of the different economies and how particularly the opportunities are playing out in the US, but that's something that we have been seeing.
Has this sort of new administration impacted any processes that you guys are in right now?
Not directly. I think it has obviously generated a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, given the issues related to tariffs, immigration, and other things. But I think that the markets are also understanding that a lot of times it's just rhetoric, and that after a few days decisions get reversed. So you really need to wait and see what's going to happen. But the advantage for Latin America and Brazil is that normally the countries are pretty open in terms of relationships with US, Europe, and Asia. So we're not, let's say, except if you talk about Venezuela, but the other countries are normally not primary target. But, it generates a little bit of uncertainty, but I have not seen deals falling apart because of that or being postponed. Not at this time.
Great. I think we may be over on. Does anyone have any questions? No. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you
thanks.
very much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new from it. If you have any questions or comments for us or any of our guests, please feel free to leave them in the podcast platform of your choice or send us an email at editor@maadvisor.com. We would love to hear from you and get your feedback. And if you haven't done so already, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and subscribe to our M&A Alerts newsletter at the links in the description or on our website at www.maadvisor.com. This will help you stay updated on the latest M&A interviews and trends and support our podcast to grow and reach more listeners like you. This is Roger Aguinaldo, the creator and founder of the M&A Advisor. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our M&A Advisor community. Until next time, stay safe and happy dealing.